What's going on, guys? So today, pretty simple video. We're just going to do kind of a similar build breakdown to what we've done on the E30 before, but instead of just breaking down the parts, we're going to break down cost. So if you wanted to build something similar to this, or kind of in the realm of this idea, you can get a good idea on what it would cost you to do so, and you know, put you in the ballpark. So if you were to do something like this, you know what you're getting into. So obviously initially you need a car. I bought this car for $500 and drove it with the stock drivetrain for a while, but I'm guessing if you're watching this video to see the cost of a swap, then you've already got a car. So we'll start with the engine. I bought this engine from a junkyard. It had 56,000 miles on it. It is a 5.3 liter aluminum LS based engine. I bought mine for $900. It was fully dressed with all the truck intake and water pump, power steering pump. The only thing that was missing, I think, is the alternator and the starter. Other than that, it had the full front accessories, which if you have a big enough car, you don't necessarily have to change those. I had to change them to the car accessories, which is a Camaro water pump, which was, I think, like 120 bucks. And then, you know, the alternator and the starters, I think the alternator was 100 bucks, and the starter I got out of a junkyard for like 60 bucks. So that's just the engine. I went in and I refreshed all the gaskets and everything on the engine, so that's about $300 there. And then I went with this carbureted system, which probably most people aren't going to do. At the time, it seemed like the best option. This whole system, intake, carburetor, and the MSD ignition controller cost me $1,100. So that puts us at right around, you know, $2,300 for the engine and everything. Then you add, you know, flywheel, clutch, so you're right around $2,500 for the engine. Nowadays, I think FI Tech makes a really good fuel injection system that bolts onto these cars that I've been kind of looking into maybe switching over to, and it's, you know, wiring harness, computer, all that. And I think it's like $1,500. If I were to go back, that's probably what I would go with. It's a pretty cool custom built intake and all that. So right around $2,500 in the engine for, you know, a refreshed 5.3 liter aluminum block. A lot of people buy the iron blocks, the 5.3 iron blocks, which isn't a bad option. But if you buy the right aluminum block, you can get them for, you know, maybe $100 more than the iron block. So I would suggest looking for the aluminum block. Jalopnik has a good article on their website about what specific vehicles had the 5.3 aluminum block that you can find. And a lot of junkyards just don't pay attention because they don't know it's an aluminum block. So that brings us to the transmission, which I'm running a Super T10 4-speed. I bought it off a guy that had it in a 72 Chevelle, and I paid him $1,200 for the transmission, bell housing, drive shaft, and it came with a bunch of other random goodies for a 72 Chevelle that I ended up just relisting on Craigslist and made some money back on that. But the initial cost was $1,200. And then it cost me $200 to have the drive shaft made by a local machine shop here in town. And that pretty much sums up the drivetrain, because more than likely you're probably gonna run the stock differential and all that. Now that brings us to mounting the engine into the car. Now, a lot of people go out and buy the swap kits and all that. Those swap kits can be kind of expensive, and I didn't really see the need to spend, you know, $900, $1,200 on a swap kit when it's really not that much cost in steel if you have some basic welding knowledge and simple fabrication. I mean, people have been putting different engines in hot rods for years. You know, it's nothing new swapping an engine into a different car. And all the old timers will probably tell you the same thing. Just drop it in there and make some mounts. At least that's what my fabrication teacher told me, because I told him I was going to buy a swap kit and he called me a dumbass and told me to build them myself. So that's what I ended up doing, which basically is just getting the engine level on an engine hoist and kind of eyeballing where you want it to sit, and then building your basically build your mounting plates that mount to the engine block, and then build a little box for it to sit on, and then basically you just need to make a brace that goes between the two. I mean, it's really a simple process. I'm sure the kits are way over engineered for what they are. I mean, as you can see down in here, I mean, my engine mounts are relatively simple. There's not much to them, and they cost me $100 in steel to make my engine and trans mounts versus, you know, the Sicky kit I think at the time was, you know, over $1,000. So that's one way to cut cost, is even if you probably took it to like a decent fab shop and had them made it, it would probably still cost you less than buying the swap kit, to be honest with you, because it's really not that difficult, and any capable fab shop should be able to build you engine mounts in a couple of days, and it probably wouldn't cost you more than $500. All right, so I guess one other thing on the engine is the oil pan. That was $300, and I had to put a pedal box in this car. You may not have to put a pedal box in your car, depending on what car you had. The E30s, you have to delete the brake booster and switch to manual brakes. I think now they've found out a way to get around that. At the point in time I did this, there really wasn't many people running around with LS swapped E30s. So that's what I had to do. I got a Willwood pedal box with master cylinders, and it was $400. So basically, with all the miscellaneous goodies and all that, this swap cost me $6,500. Now, for doing an LS swap, it's really not a bad price, saying that's, you know, I spent $500 on the car, $6,500 to do the swap. I'm sure there's cheaper ways to do it, especially nowadays. And you can find good deals on stuff online and stuff. So, but that's just what it cost me to do it. And there's probably some ways I could have cut costs, but I did put a lot of new parts and stuff like that on it. So, in general, you know, $6,500 budget to put an LS in a car is not bad. I mean, if you're going to pay a shop to put an LS in your 240 or E36, they're probably going to charge you, you know, $15,000, $20,000 to do that. So you figure a quarter, you know, half to a quarter of that budget. So that's it, really. It's not that difficult of a process. I mean, anybody that's mechanically inclined can put an engine from anything into anything, especially if you go carbureted, because everything's on a separate standalone system. So you leave all your accessories on key on, and then you just run a little electrical panel like I got in here, and it, you know, this panel runs the entire car, and then everything else for the chassis is ran by ignition key on. So it makes it simple. You know, it makes the engine basically a standalone system, and makes it really easy to diagnose too. So that's it. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea. I know I covered a lot of the parts that were in the car in the build breakdown, which I'll list up here somewhere. But I just wanted to give you a better idea of the cost it would take to do a swap like this in your garage on a budget. So like, comment, subscribe down below. If you have any questions or concerns, be sure to leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them the best I can. And we will see you in the next one.